Now we can see each other.
Ah, that's useful. Yeah, that's super useful.
This podcast is made possible by the generosity of listeners and viewers like you. Kindly consider a contribution through Patreon or PayPal. Links are in the details box. Any amount is appreciated. And follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The handle, the Beirut Banyan. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And to stay updated with video releases, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. I'm Rani Shatar, and this is the Beirut Banyan. You cover stories. Now you're part of the story. And you interviewed me 6 months ago. Now I'm interviewing you.
Mm-hmm.
So things come full circle.
Yeah.
So take me down that road with you. Your own personal experience as a reporter in Beirut while Lebanon is collapsing. And what it feels like to be part of the story. Mm-hmm. Even if it's momentary, even if it's a fleeting story, but still, you're now part of the story. Mm-hmm. So just your own experience covering and becoming part of this very, very complicated, tragic, difficult moment.
Thank you, Ronnie. Well, thank you so much for having me on and for inviting me onto the show. I've been listening to you since I got here. When you Google or when you search on Spotify for Lebanese podcasts, yours was the first one to come up.
Oh, then I'm sorry.
So, no, it's been a pleasure. And yeah, it was a really quite a moment actually. I was made aware of your story, as you say, back in February, when I started doing some research into the story that I was working on, which at that point was political assassinations. And as I do, you kind of Google, you look at images, and I saw your face. And then I think it must have been about half an hour later, I was walking down Chemeze.
Oh, you're kidding?
And you were standing outside a cafe, and I was like,
oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure. And I think I even had to stop and get my phone out of my pocket and just be like, is that it? And then I must have been looking quite strange because you were there, and I was just like, is that I think that's him. Just talked to myself.
I think now that I think about it more, I'm your older, fatter, shorter doppelganger. Because we have similar hair issues.
Issues is a good word for it, yeah.
I tend to look ajnabi, and you could pass as nus Lebanese. Okay. So yeah, it's kind of, I like that you approached me without hesitation too. I appreciated what you did. Because you said, I remember this now, you asked if I am me, and then you were very gentle with the way of wanting to learn more for a story. Mm-hmm. So you didn't intimidate at all. You're actually quite welcoming. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate how you let me talk about that story on my terms. Which I really liked the way you handled it. But I interrupted you. No,
not at all. Thank you so much. I think, as you say, like, my focus here in Lebanon has been in one sense to follow the stories, particularly the human stories around the society here as it's crumbling, as the political crises continue to unfold. And obviously, Lokman's tragic story when, the events surrounding his death, when all of that came out, it shook me, and I felt like I wanted to find out more, and I felt I wanted to find out how much, I guess, the impact, the human impact, not just on him and his family, but also like the more wider than that, and how it impacts journalists and how it impacts freedom of speech actors. And so, I'm very glad that you were happy to talk to me. But
I'll say that's the only time I saw your name associated with this terrain.
Well, exactly, because I think, I've been in Lebanon 10 months. It's a very complicated country, politics which are incredibly complicated. I know that coming here, I had to learn a lot before writing specifically about politics,
Right.
to be able to be confident to write about it and to not make a fool of myself.
Yeah.
So I think writing about that particular group and that particular party was something which actually for the first few months I shied away from, because I didn't, as much as I was reading and I was consuming, I didn't feel like I had confidence in my own understanding of the subject to really push out anything of an opinion, or anything that resembled bias. So I think I was trying to cover, as I said, human stories, as obviously as you've mentioned, other stories as well to do with like trekking, long distance running, Olympians, like lots of things which I find interesting. And as you say, the unfortunate situation that I found myself in just a couple of days ago was that I didn't go looking to report on this group. I didn't go looking to report on the party. I just found myself in with them, not in with them, but in their midst, if you like. And
can you shed light on that just in a general way?
Yeah.
Do you sense that, I mean, because you're in the world of reporting, you know other reporters that have had similar experiences, that this is just, it comes with the territory of being a reporter in Lebanon, that there's going to be this type of intimidation should you want to go to Dahi or certain areas of South Lebanon. That it's a matter of fact. That there's no guarantee that you can go without, unfortunately, having to go through their security and their permission, whether it's their channels and the like. So as much as you can say on that, just that if, should you want to cover a story again there, that you, unfortunately, you'll either be intimidated again, or you'll have to succumb to using their channels for their type of persuasion.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was something that I was made aware of at some point during the time that I've been here. I know, being detained isn't an exceptional thing in Lebanon. Many journalists, it's happened to many journalists. And certainly the scenario that I experienced was nothing exceptional on top of that. It seemed very much like a procedure that went through at the point of being detained. Just in terms of how I chose the story, in the gas station that had submitted a call out in the morning through the National News Agency requesting military assistance, because they expected, because of the fuel crisis and the fuel shortage, that they were going to, they were worried of violence on their territory, on their premises. So they called for assistance. So looking at Google Maps, seeing where the gas station was, it didn't click to me that this was somewhere that I needed to be concerned about, to be honest.
Right.
So it was an oversight, if playing by these rules. And yeah, I guess if these are the rules of this area, I overstepped the mark. I didn't make the phone call that I was supposed to make.
But I like the way you said it, because this is not the standard procedure for other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And it could just be that the gas station, it's on the airport road.
Yeah.
It's accessible. It's not a very difficult area to reach. It's the airport road, the old airport road. So I like the way you're framing it, that you were there to cover a story that's not related to them, but it becomes about them simply by being there. And is this the first time that you've experienced this kind of intimidation, whether in Lebanon or in general, as a reporter? I don't know much about your story prior to arriving, but the reason I ask it in a maybe a silly way is because you're very smooth. You came out okay. We spoke, I think, that night, or no, we messaged each other that night, and we spoke the next day. I mean, obviously you didn't sleep well, but none of us are sleeping well in this country.
Yeah.
But you cracked a few jokes. You seem to be in your element. So I wonder if you've had some experience before, or if you accept this, that this is what it's like to be a reporter in Lebanon. And it wasn't the end of the world, obviously, but you just sort of bite the bullet and you move on. Because I appreciate how you handled it. I think not many people would be able to keep their cool right away. And I get the feeling that you did.
One of the reasons why I chose this career is because I feel that I'm generally okay under pressure, and in situations which, I'm certainly, I certainly have reacted to it. I would be lying to you if I would say that there have been moments over the last few days where I've been, which has been emotionally difficult. There have been ups and downs, fear, paranoia, all that kind of stuff. But certainly at the time during my interrogation or questioning, I felt, I guess, the best tactic for me was to try and de-escalate and just try and get through it. And Stella, my colleague, or my friend who came with me, she's also a fine journalist. I think it probably helped that she was there as well.
This is what I was actually going to ask you, because I think it relieves some pressure just by having that support.
Yeah.
And that you're also, it's not to be too silly here, but you're also a very tall person. So I think you are by default intimidating when you approach. But that it's obviously that you have emotional support during a difficult time.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that it ended quickly. Because I was, well, not just me, many people were trying to share that news quickly, and it got the attention of enough people quickly, which is just how things are now.
Yeah.
Within seconds, sometimes a story can sort of take hold. And it was, I think, by sunset, sort of, we learned that you were fine. So I'm very happy that it ended in a fairly easy way. And I want to ask, this kind of incident, or you mentioned that you've experienced difficult experiences, does it dissuade you from reporting? So in other words, in a few months, do you still see yourself here? Or would you be able to handle these kinds of situations regularly?
Yeah, I should hope so, but I understand that obviously it's made to be more cautious. There have certainly been moments over the last few days where I'm like, maybe I should just stick to sports. Maybe I should just stick to writing about incredible athletes, and that's surely not going to be a danger. So
I will add, you turned down this. This was offered the night Germany and the UK were playing. Germany, England, yeah. And you said, sorry, I have something better to cover. I was like, well, that's fine.
Well, actually, the beautiful thing was, I think it was either the night afterwards, and Stella, she's German, and I'm English, of course.
Oh, of course,
so
right.
We actually both went to the pub to watch the game.
And that's where your friendship ended.
Yes, exactly. When you're not talking anymore.
You survived interrogation, but football is something else.
Something else entirely. Yeah, it's coming home. I should say it's coming home. Yeah. So we were able to go back out and enjoy ourselves, but otherwise, I definitely would have been here.
Right, I'm sure. Yes, but you're sticking to reporting. I guess that's what I'm getting from you. That this is not going to stop you from doing your job, in general.
It's not going to stop me, but certainly at the moment, the way that I'm feeling is that it was enough of an experience for me to at least second guess, or at least question, or at least, and without going into too much detail, there's certainly been moments which hopefully are going to fade out of paranoia and fear, and that's not really what anybody should have to experience when they're just doing their job, really.
So, speaking about paranoia and fear, and then there's the world of journalism and reporting in Lebanon, and then there's the wider picture of what's happening to this country. And I'll ask it in a big way, but I'd like you to dissect what you want from this question, and it's on your terms. You covered Luqman Slim's assassination. You covered many things that went wrong in this country since the port blast. You're working for an outlet that once existed years ago, now it's back, and its emphasis is on politics, although economics is there too. Do you sense that this is the crux of the issue? as somebody who's recently arrived to Lebanon, that it is impossible to do two things. To reform while there's this huge problem in the country, and it's a security issue, it's a geopolitical story, it's covered every day now. I think it's actually the one story that's covered by everyone all the time. So it's out in the open. That's a story that nobody's afraid to talk about. At the same time, there is intimidation and fear when you really want to do more than just talk. Because you go on Twitter now, anytime, you just sort of see it second by second, that story's being addressed. But then there's situations like you ended up in, where you're not talking about that story, but you're getting intimidated. And then you have that feeling of fear that may not be that much to get you out of your career, but it could dissuade other people from reporting on this issue itself. So I'll let you take what you want from that question, and how you see it in the wider story of reporting on Lebanon. Because I think you could report on everything in this country right now. There's so much happening. I mean, we're lucky the electricity hasn't gone out yet. The AC is working, and there's no internet because this is
touch wood.
There's no wood. Well, that's going to go out now. And I don't want to put you on the spot on a question that is perhaps more sensitive than others, but just that how you see the wider picture. Having been here for almost a year now, if you see this as central to the story, or if you see it as just one of many factors.
I see the group's existence as a product or as a result, or is a result of many, many things that are happening, whether you talk about the insistence of it, well, actually, of its existence as a proxy, it's obviously foreign funded, foreign backed, and for as long as that's happening, it's going to keep existing, and it will keep regenerating and reproducing itself, using very similar tactics to other groups all around the world who recruit young men from disadvantaged communities who don't have other opportunities other than to serve a cause which they've been told is the right cause to serve.
So at least psychologically, it's a shared story. In that sense,
and then, but at the same time, they exist, and from the brief conversation that I had with my detainers, I guess, is that the right word? That
never heard it said that way, but it's right. Detainers.
That for as long as Israel is a threat to them in their minds and to their constituency, I guess if you want to call it constituency, they will keep, it's very clear in their mind that that's, for the people who I spoke to at least, and I haven't interviewed a whole cross-section of this group, but for as long as Israel exists and is a threat to them in the way that it currently is, then they can always convince or justify their existence in their own head and to the heads of other people as well. And obviously, I wasn't here in 2006. I wasn't here during the occupations, and but with the media that's coming out of south of the border, with the current Silwan or Sheikh Jarrah and the bombings of Gaza and everything like that, the way that media is shared, like right now, it's very easy to take that content and say to someone, this will happen to us.
I like that you're reporting when you're being detained. You're talking about the story as a reporter while you're being interrogated about another story. So I like that you're actually, in a way, you're still doing your job, even when you're put to the side of your job. So that's quite telling that you're able to still have that, well, I wouldn't say sympathetic lens necessarily, but more that you're still doing your job accordingly. You're trying to learn as opposed to sort of...
Well, that's it. I mean, there's not many opportunities, and maybe opportunities is the wrong word, I don't know, but I don't recommend anyone trying to seek this opportunity. It's pretty tough. But there isn't many opportunities where you're sat opposite someone from that group and being like, tell me what you think. And for me, it's just an opportunity to listen and to get an understanding of what the party lines are, what their takes on the party lines are. And it was clear for this person who I was talking to what for them is the main threat. And, you know, I can, you know, I was saying this to my friend the other night, and again, I don't want to sound as though I'm sympathetic to my captor or anything like that. I'm experiencing some kind of Stockholm syndrome, which would definitely be the wrong diagnosis because it wasn't that. But you know,
I think that takes months.
It takes months, exactly.
Not
not a couple of hours. But you know, it was clear from given what Lebanon has experienced from south of the border, it's not difficult to use that to justify and to keep justifying. And I'm not saying it's right, and I want to be really clear that I'm not saying it's right. It's just because obviously there's far more at play than that. There's plenty of arguments out there, and there's plenty of stuff that's been written by people far more versed than I am, far more intelligent. I'm just basically say that that's obviously not what this group just purely exists as anymore.
Sure, but you're just in a way, not without the academic jargon or even without the, there's no research per se, but it's more on the ground reporting and what you're learning from that view.
Yeah.
Which I think is extremely important. And you're able to do it still, even while you're being detained, you're still trying to learn. So I actually think that's quite admirable. That's not easy to do. Just to sort of take it one step further beyond the incident where you were detained or beyond your limited time in Lebanon. I'm very curious. I don't get opportunities to ask reporters this other than sort of being one-on-one on this podcast. What took you to the world of reporting to begin with? And what took you to Lebanon?
Okay.
And I know that Lebanon's always on the news, so I think maybe reporters are drawn to newsworthy stories. But you individually didn't have to come. You showed up here after the blast. So what is it about the craft, storytelling craft and reporting, and about Lebanon that is keeping you here while the country's collapsing?
I had a few locations in mind, but one of the places that I was told would be a good jumping off point, certainly to this region, was Lebanon. And obviously the economic and political situation here before the blast was unique, at least, and looked like it wasn't going to get better anytime soon. And
you hadn't been here before?
Never been here before.
Yeah.
I started making contacts with people who were here, friends of friends, and calling up NGOs and things like that, and trying to reach out to journalists as well, using different channels. And decided that, this was the place I was going to come. Then the blast happened.
So you had already planned on coming?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I was actually, the crazy thing was, I mean, using scary is probably not the right word to use here, given what happened that day. But I was literally searching on Twitter for journalists in Lebanon, or like Lebanese journalists, when Beirut started trending, and I just thought that was the algorithms giving me something interesting to look at. Clicked on it, and it was minutes after the first videos started circulating, which we've all seen hundreds of times now. And it was in that moment actually where I was shocked, and like we all were. And I actually reasoned that I probably wasn't prepared for this context, for a crisis situation like this. But the contacts who I'd made in Beirut, in Lebanon, in the conversations afterwards, actually convinced me that it was a good time to come, and that actually foreign journalists were needed now, or at that point more than before. So I booked a flight and an Airbnb for a couple of weeks. I was originally coming on a 2-week reporting trip, and I'm still here 10 months later.
I see. At the beginning, it was just covering a certain topic rather than basing yourself in Lebanon.
Yeah.
So you ended up drawn to this country.
Yes, I did, yeah.
Are there any regrets? Not this incident, not
Yeah.
the interrogation,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the bad stuff that comes with that.
Mm.
More than just seeing how negative things are and how difficult it is, I think, for a reporter.
Mhm.
Because we live here, we meaning all Lebanese are suffering at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyone in this country is suffering.
Mhm.
Maybe you're lucky in a way that you can get out whenever you want. You have probably a foreign account. Your money's not locked here. You have another home to go to eventually.
Yeah.
But you're reporting, and reporting takes its toll. I think the fact that you have to get up every morning and cover something sad and tragic
Yeah.
is psychologically difficult.
Yeah.
Lebanese or foreign, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This country can take its toll on anyone.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if that maybe makes you sort of not regret, but more that maybe it's not exactly what you hoped for by being here.
Yeah, I think it's really important, I think, for journalists who are probably not the best at doing this to keep a tab on their mental well-being, on how the story is affecting them, or even how the context that they're living in is affecting them. Because I think we're often driven by deadlines, we're driven by trying to increase our profile and things like that, that it's very easy to just burn out. I think I don't regret anything from coming here. I've definitely fallen in love with this country. I know that the situation has affected me. I know that every time I talk to someone and they tell me how difficult it is for them for various reasons, I know it's leaving a mark on me, and I know it's leaving a strain. As you said, I think I've got an immense privilege in that I can leave at any time. And sometimes that is the perspective that you need when you're writing on someone's story or on the situation. As I said, I don't regret it. I think there's so much which I've learnt and so much which I hugely value, and some incredible friends and incredible contacts that I've made. And, I'm certainly not the type of person who can completely disconnect from the context either. So I know that whether that would be good for me as a journalist, I know that empathy is something which I have. But yeah, ultimately that can mean after a bunch of time, a holiday might be needed.
I'll say that from the reporting I've read, your reporting, your stories, your written word, a lot of your pieces are character driven. They're personalities that come out of these stories. Happened that I was one of these characters in one story, but it's not. I mean, it's sort of anywhere you go in this country, you're bringing people. You're exposing, I think, a lot of beauty in the process too. It's not just painful baggage. I think you make some of your characters really shine. And I love that you took us to Mount Lebanon on that long journey. I thought, if anything, that's how you would go. You'll just disappear. We'll never see you again.
Just into the mountains.
Yeah, but you came back down, went to a gas station, and that's where things took off. But they're character driven. They're very well written. And I think it's quite telling that once you get so deep into the story, somehow becomes part of you. And it becomes, for maybe a few minutes or a few days, whatever, we're learning about your story. So I'm lucky that I can ask you about yourself and get kidnapped again so we can do another episode.
Definitely not, if I can avoid it. I'll try and find something else to get to come back, because I'd obviously love to come onto this show, and it is a real pleasure to be here. It's
a pleasure to consider you a friend, to see you from time to time. Hours before this incident happened, we spoke on the sidewalk. We've run into each other, and I like that there's a friendship beyond the journalism craft. But I'm also very lucky that you, in a way, unintentionally nudged me to do this in person. And the moment you said you had an extra camera with you, and that you reminded me that you live next door, and that this is easier to do some way in person without everything, the internet and everything happening. I think this is the way I should do it from now on.
Fantastic. I'm Well, I'm more than happy to offer my services should you need, but I don't think you need them. I think you're doing a...
You're hired.
Yes, this is it. This is what
Screw now, Lebanon.
Wait, don't screw now, Lebanon. Wait,
Don't
what?
screw now, Lebanon.
And just to say thank you, those were some really lovely things that you was just saying about characters, and for me, you know, I know we've spoken about politics, and you know, there's always a part of journalism where you're tying in a character story to a wider political event. But for me, that is the most interesting thing, is the characters and the interesting people that you meet, and that's what people relate to in stories most. And I am very grateful for all the people who are happy to talk to me. I've just gathered a very interesting collection in my phone book of people who I now talk to on a very regular basis, and that for me is a big part of it as well. It's sociable, and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. Stories are better told when they're told by good storytellers. So I'll leave it there. Thank you. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks for listening and watching, and a friendly reminder to support this podcast by contributing through Patreon or PayPal. All links are in the details box. Until next time, I'm Rani Shatah, and this is the Beirut Banyan. All right. Did you think this room recorded anything?